welcome back. This is Rachel with the Book Mavens, and tonight I have a few reviews for you. I have one completed trilogy and a new release I would like to talk about tonight. So I'm going to start with the completed trilogy because that's what I finished first. And it is the Remnant Chronicles by Mary Pearson. You'll have to correct me on that if you know. So these are the somewhat newly released redesigned covers. The original covers had like a girl walking, you get to see her back, and kind of like kind of a vintagey look to them. These ones have no character art on them. I was really interested in reading the series. These were cheaper, so these are the ones I ended up with. That being said, before I really get into the review, Fairy Loot is doing a special edition of this set towards the end of June, I believe. So any of you who are collectors who really enjoyed the Remnant Chronicles, and if you'd be interested in picking up a really beautiful hardcover set, I thought the designs were very beautiful. I plan on getting them, and then of course I will share them with you when they come in. I am trying to be more careful about my special edition buying, within reason. I'm trying to aim towards series that I've read before, and really trying to invest in series that I did genuinely like, and not just collecting to collect, which has been very difficult for me, but I'm working on it. So anyway, so let's talk about the Remnant Chronicles. So you can see it is completed. Now there is a kind of an offshoot trilogy that I think is set in the same world, different characters, and that's, I think, Dance of Thieves, Vow of Thieves. I forget what comes first. Dance of Thieves is first, and then Vow of Thieves, and I think that there's one more. I think it's supposed to be another trilogy. I haven't read those yet. People love them, like love them. But I understand where the love is coming from because I love the Remnant Chronicles. I highly recommend these. I think I read the entire set in about a week. I really enjoyed these books. You'll notice that the third one is quite a bit thicker than the first two, and there's a lot that happens in these books. So the basic premise is we have a princess. All right, she's 17. Now these are YA, but truly, if you enjoy adult fantasy, there is enough complex world building in here. The relationships are very well fleshed out. I do personally, my only thing that I would have to say that's really negative about these books is that I do wish they had aged up our protagonist. Now she behaves, which I think fairly maturely, to be honest, and her decision making and all of the events that lead her to where she ends up at the end of the book. I would have liked to have seen this with an older protagonist, but that's just me because I'm older. I mean, I'm in my later 30s. That level of maturity you don't typically see in a 17-year-old. I know we always think that, especially reading fantasy, our protagonists tend to be very, very young, making very, very adult decisions. But sometimes you just kind of wish that they would just allow them. Like, girlfriend could have been 25. Like, really, it would have been okay. Anyway, our main character, Leah, she is a princess, and she's been betrothed to a prince in another kingdom. She is not very happy about this arrangement. She is known as a first daughter, and the remnants are just kind of like leftover survivors of the ancient people. When we talk about magic system in this world, it's small magic, what I think more like a precognitive ability to be able to tell when things are coming to some degree, or just the sense of knowing and a connection to the past. And so it's a small magic. There's no like big displays. It's not like wizarding or anything like that. But the world is very, very nice, or very well developed. Anyway, so we have our princess, her 17-year-old. So she's betrothed to this kingdom, or to this prince in another kingdom, to bode peace. They're not warring, but just to, you know, maintain alliances. And he is, we don't know who he is. So she had sent a note to him very, very quickly before they're supposed to get married, for her to be able to see him in person. And he does not answer that letter. So she had seen the king of this kingdom, and he is very, very old. So she immediately thought that this prince is going to be so much older than her. She was very uncomfortable. She didn't see why they needed this alliance. So she and her kind of lady in waiting take off right before she's supposed to get married and run off to this small fishing village and just start a new life where they're working in a tavern. They make friends, and they're also maids in this inn. But meanwhile, we now switch from Leah's perspective to 4 other perspectives. One is the prince. One is the assassin who's been sent to kill her from another kingdom, who's looking to take over all of the kingdoms. And then 2 strangers entering the town and in the tavern. And we hear their names, Rafe and Caden. We know that one of them's the assassin, one of them is the prince. But we don't know which one it is. So you spend at least half the first book not really knowing which of these guys that have been interacting with Leah in this village is the prince and which one's the assassin. And so we of course know that there is absolutely a romantic storyline happening here. I wouldn't say that it's romantic-y necessarily, because there's a lot of other things going on, but it's a very, very strong subplot. And I thought it was very clever for the author to do that you don't know for sure who is who. I thought that was very, very smart. And so her and Pauline's the name of her lady in waiting. Just reading how their lives are in this little village is very interesting. Then of course, something's going to happen at the end of book 1, and we end up in the bad kingdom that's trying to take over everything in the second one. And we've got the prince and the assassin still present. I don't want to give this away because I really do hope that those of you who watch our videos will check these books out. They were very solidly written. I think those of you who are not interested in a really, really strong romantic plot will still really like these. There's a lot of politics in these books, and I think that it's written very, very well. And then so we see what's happening in this other kingdom in the second book. And then the third, of course, is everything's going to come to a head. There is the price to be paid for her actions that she had running away in the first book, and a lot of plots that are revealed, and how things are going to work out in the end. And there's, to me, a little bit of a similarity if you've ever read The Bridge Kingdom, in terms of having to kind of make up for some decisions, at least kind of having to like pay the piper, so to speak, for making kind of rash decisions. And so there are some consequences that will happen, of course, to Leah for doing what she did in the first book. And but everything comes full circle. I really, really recommend this trilogy. Please check it out. I thought these were very, very well done. Very, very strong female character. She's good. All right. A lot of autonomy, a lot of independence. She's smart. I do really, really recommend anybody really to pick these up. So if you have a YA reader, absolutely, low to minimal spice. Like there's nothing explicit whatsoever in these books. So they're not, that's why I said they're not, they are YA. But the storyline is very complex. And if you are an adult reader, I would not shy away from reading these. These were very, very good. I very much enjoyed these, and I do recommend these. These were a 5-star read for me. I will absolutely read these again one day. I really enjoyed them. Now, for my new release that I wanted to talk about, I think my last video I did with you guys, I did my Owl Crate unboxing, and Divine Rivals was the book that was chosen. I will have another copy of this. You'll see this book again in my Fairy Loot box. Yeah, it was the YA pick for Fairy Loot. Now, this is by Rebecca Ross. She's written several of the books that are fairly popular. This is supposed to be a YA novel. This is not a YA novel. It's not. It's not YA. Your characters are young. I think 18, 19. But this is not YA. This is an adult book. You have our character Iris. And she's lovely. She's lovely. And our male lead, he's just everything you could wish for, really. I don't say this very often about books. There's usually something I can say that I wish they had done this differently or whatever, any of those things. Guys, this is a perfect book. It's written incredibly well. It's the first in a series, so there will be more. Guys, our characters are perfect. It is a romance to some degree. It's perfect. This is a perfect book. There is not a thing I would change about this book. Not one thing. It's glorious. So let me set up the premise here. We have our two characters who are rivals in a newspaper office to land a columnist position. They snipe at each other. The banter is quite good. Iris does not come from any money. Her mother was a waitress. Her brother ends up getting called to war by a goddess. So you have this time period that feels very like World War I, World War II-ish. And kind of England. All right. And it's a totally alternate world, but that's the time period in terms of how they dress, the mannerisms, their view on war. If you love a solid World War book, you'll love this. This is absolutely up your alley, okay? So her brother gets called away. So she is kind of, she took the columnist job. She had to drop out of school to do it. And her mother just cannot handle it and is a drunk. And so she's taking care of her mother, working at this newspaper, trying to land this columnist position. Meanwhile, she has this typewriter that she types letters to her brother and sends them what she thinks is a magical wardrobe. Turns out that that's not the case. It's her actual typewriter that's enchanted and is sending the letters to an owner of another typewriter. There are 3 typewriters that are connected magically. And so her letters end up going to someone else. And he eventually writes back saying, I'm not your brother. But this starts up this whole correspondence between these two. So guys, this is like World War II meets You've Got Mail. In this charming kind of enemies, but are they really enemies? It does very heavily, I feel like, borrow from You've Got Mail. The charmingness, like he knows who she is. She has no idea who he is. And he has to get through a lot of his misconceptions he had about her. Now, he comes from a very wealthy family, and he did preemptively judge her to not be worthy of this columnist position because she didn't finish school, things like that. And then he grows to respect her tremendously. And so things are going to happen where she ends up deciding to become a war correspondent. So she goes close to the front lines. So this war is not between countries, it's between 2 gods. And they're calling up their supporters to fight this battle. And it is very kind of a little Hades and Persephone going on. You have the god of the underworld who's trying to take this, who's had this disagreement where he was really in love with her and tried to lure her to the underworld, and she of course tricks him and gets out. And so she has put all of these gods to sleep somehow, and he has awoken, and now they're at war, and she can call followers to her, which is what happened to Iris's brother. And it's just fascinating. It is so beautifully written. So you still have these letters going back and forth. So 3/4 of this book are letters going back and forth between them, and how emotionally raw they are. You're talking about people who have faced tremendous conflict in their life. Like, it's not just Iris. He comes from this wealthy family who are literally trying to marry him off to a woman who has like created like a bomb that could be used in the war, and he disagrees with this. He has a lot of family guilt in terms of his loyalties and where they lie, and then his decision. I don't want to give it away because I really do want you to read this book. This book is perfection. It is perfection. The reviews, I have not seen any negative reviews. I'm sure somebody out there has made one. I have not seen one. It is not deserving of a negative review. This is a beautifully written book. It gets incredibly emotionally raw, and it feels incredibly personal and real. This, I cannot recommend enough. I will tell everybody under the sun to read this book. This is a perfect book. And I really, really do not say that very often. I can be a pretty critical reader. Or I can say, hey, you know, this one's full of problems, but it was such a fun ride, like Fourth Wing, that you should absolutely read just because you'll enjoy it. I couldn't put this book down. I read this book in a day. This was amazing, and I will absolutely read it again. But I have moved all of Rebecca Ross's books right up to the top of my TBR. They are like the next ones I'm going to be reading here soon. I really want to read The River Enchanted, and if the rest of her writing is as good, she's going to become a new favorite author for me. Please, please, please go out and read Divine Rivals. It's new. There's still a lot of things coming out about it. This was a fabulous book, so please make sure you go check it out. So those are the books I wanted to talk about with you. These were some real winners. The Remnant Chronicles was amazing. Divine Rivals, next level incredible. Next level incredible. Beautiful. You can see it's not tremendously long, so if you're worried about getting drawn into like a really big chunker of a book, a day, guys, a day. Now, it took me most of the day, but a day to read this book, and it was so beautiful. I cannot wait for an opportunity to read it again. So I know that I will definitely give it a read through again when the next one comes out. I don't know how many books will be in this, if it's just going to be duology, I don't know. But this is a remarkable book, so please, please, please go out and check it out, and let me know in the comments if you have read this book or if you're thinking about reading it. And I hopefully will, since it's the end of the month, we're like heading right into June, I should have an Illumicrate box as well as some fairy loot to unbox with you.